Do you want to know how to save thousands of dollars every year in your business by digitizing the initial part of your employee training? That's what I'm going to show you in this video today. Hi, my name is Salio. I help small business owners create training systems that are efficient and inexpensive, and it helps them get pulled away from the training day to day and focus on the real things like growing and operating their business. So a lot of owners and managers in the retail space think that hands-on training is the key to efficient training systems. I'm telling you it's not. You have to figure out a way how to digitize the initial part of your onboarding system, okay? We're gonna talk about what is a traditional way and why it doesn't work, and what is this new way that I'm proposing. Today we're gonna talk about, like I said, save thousands of dollars by digitizing your employee training. Keyword there is digitizing. And the more important thing is right here, that we're saving money while we're doing it, okay? So first things first, why does traditional training fail, right? If we want to fix a problem, we first have to recognize that there is a problem in the first place, right? So what does traditional training look like in this part-time heavy industries like retail, hospitality, recreation, where you're depending on a lot of part-timers, a lot of weekend-only employees, night-only employees. They're only with you for about 6 months to a year if you're lucky. What does it look like, right? For the most part, in my experience, what I've seen is the owner and manager is doing all the training in person. Shadow-based training, no standard procedures, and you are always training on the fly, meaning that every time you bring a new person in, you're reinventing the wheel. Not particularly efficient, not particularly cost-effective, okay? So what are the results of an inefficient training system? Employees forget things because they're only shadowing and they're not really actually getting hands-on and trying it and getting feedback. We'll talk about feedback in a second, super important. The process is not repeatable. So like I said, you are reinventing the wheel, okay? We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We invented the wheel thousands of years ago. Why would we start again, okay? And then training varies depending on who is training. If you have one person that can train, you have a key man problem, meaning that if that person is gone, you cannot train, right? If it's you as the business owner, that means that the business is dependent on you. And at that point, you don't own a business, you own a job, right? That is requiring you to be there all the time, okay? Now, if you really enjoy training, then you want to be the trainer in your business, that's fine. We can figure out a way to help you still do that and make it efficient. The other problem is if you have multiple people that train and every single training is different, right? If Johnny trained Jacob last week and Mark is training Alyssa this week, they're getting completely different trainings, right? They're coming in at a different time with a different trainer, a different process. Their expectations are going to be different. Their know-how is going to be different. So there's no consistency, and you can't benchmark them against each other. And then this, I think, is the most important one. The owner or manager gets pulled in to fix things, so they're constantly firefighting their employee problems, and they can't focus on the bigger picture. That is my specialty where I come in. I help, like I said earlier in the video, business owners create efficient training systems so they don't have to be constantly firefighting, and they can focus on the big picture. Things like finance, sales, operations, marketing. Not that staffing is not important. Clearly it is what I built my career around. I'm just saying that there's more important things for an owner-operator to be focused on than the day-to-day management of their staff. And more importantly, the day-to-day training of new staff. See, very upset employees here, right? They don't know what's going on. It's a very cute picture. All right, let's move on. The key thing here is it's not just inefficient, it's expensive, right? It's so expensive. And we'll get into a cost breakdown in a little bit here. And the solution is to digitize all or part of your initial training, okay? So how do we do that? First step is to create an LMS or use an LMS. For those of you that don't know, an LMS is a learning management system. It's an online learning platform. If you've ever taken an online course, if you've ever done any kind of CPR or sexual harassment training, any kind of compliance training, you've used an LMS before. It's where you sit in front of a computer and it goes through kind of cringy videos, right? There's a good way and a bad way to use an LMS. We'll talk about that in a second here. Some examples are Talent LMS, Absorb, LearnWorlds. These are kind of the more corporate LMSs. Talent is actually fairly inexpensive for a small business. Absorb is also fairly inexpensive. LearnWorlds gets a little bit more customized and a little bit more expensive. If you have under 50 members in your team, probably Talent and Absorb are going to be great. As you get bigger, LearnWorlds or things like Kajabi are going to be a little bit more customized to exactly what your organization needs. I've had experience with all three of these. They're all great. LearnWorlds is what I currently use in my day job. It is an incredibly powerful platform. You don't have to get a fancy LMS to digitize your employee training. You can start with something as simple as a Google Drive, okay? Most businesses run on Google Business. You should already be paying for Google Drive. Might as well get your money's worth and use that, okay? We'll talk about practically what that looks like. If it's a more of a technical role, things like customer service and being behind a point of sale system, Loom is great because you can literally click through and your face is showing. You can talk them through what you're doing. It shows your screen. If you haven't looked at Loom, Loom is a phenomenal tool. And then you can get a little bit more, again, customized for your business with something like Notion. From my personal experience, I found that I use a combination of these. So I love using LearnWorlds for initial training, and I love using Notion as a on-the-job knowledge database. So all of our SOPs live in Notion, and all of our initial training lives in LearnWorlds. So we talked about earlier about shadowing and why shadowing is ineffective. You definitely want some shadowing in there. You still want that face-to-face interaction. You don't want to digitize your entire training and onboarding. What I recommend, and the approach that I've taken in my personal career, is to have a hybrid model. You digitize some parts of it and you keep some parts in person. So what parts do you digitize? What parts do you keep in person? Okay. What I like to say is anything, we'll get into these in a little bit, anything that is a need to know, right? Need to know, you keep digitized, and something that is a need to know how to do, or call it a how to do, you keep in person. So some examples are job expectations, policies, scripts, basic procedures, how your business does things. And then in person is things like live shadowing, okay? Skill demos, culture immersion. Culture immersion is huge. This is why we keep an in-person part of training. You want to make sure that your employees know how you do things as a business, how you operate, how people talk to each other, how your manager delivers feedback, how the feedback gets delivered to your manager. That is so, so important. That is why we want to keep an in-person part of training. All of these, culture immersion, skill demos, live shadowing, are nothing if you're not giving feedback to your employee, right? So I guess, they're getting all of their need to know over here, and then they're getting hands-on on how to do it here, and then getting feedback from an experienced employee or experienced trainer or manager. And that is how you solidify learning in a new employee. So let's do a cost breakdown of the traditional versus the digitized person. So if that's 20 hours in person, call it 20 hours a week for a new employee, that is $500 of money being spent to your trainer every single time you bring a new employee. We said we were doing 4 a month, so let's say 1 a week, 4 a month, right? Times 4, that is $2,000 every single month. Times 12, you are spending roughly $24,000 for your trainer to train your employees hands-on. So that is a traditional approach. When you switch to Digitize, this is a rough estimate. It's going to be vary depending on your business. Say we went from 20 hours in person to 6 hours online and 14 hours in person, still at that trainer rate of $25 an hour. So now, of that initial 20, that trainer only has to do 14 in person now. So that is, I believe, is $350 a week, okay? Times 4 is going to be, I believe, $1,400 every month, okay? You're already seeing the difference here. Times 12, I think that is $16,800. That means that you are saving every year, every single year, I believe that is $7,200 every single year, okay, for just one trainer. Now, say you have one location, that's one trainer, right? That is directly contributing to your profit. And then, say you add another location, okay, that's going to be times 2. You're looking at $14,400, right? And so on as you begin to grow. This, as you get economies of scale in your business, that is huge, okay? It's so much money going directly into your profit. So it's all well in theory, right? But I'm gonna talk about how it actually works in person. I've actually done this. I did this for the past 5 years in my day job. I work in aquatic recreation, training lifeguards and swim instructors. Again, very similar hospitality and service. Very people heavy, very unexperienced workforce, a lot of a younger workforce where you are training people and they're gonna last with you 6 months to a year. So if they're leaving before that, you're really losing money because you have to train a lot more people. We'll talk about employee retention in another video. That's for another time. We don't have time for that today. But I'll show you my experience. So training was 100% in person. So what we did is we digitized that initial training. So we went from 40 hours in person to 30 in person, okay? So reduction of about 25%. We went from only one person being able to train to now 16 because we removed that initial classroom session where we were just info dumping on the new hires. Not only is that more efficient for them to do it at their own pace through an LMS, but we're also saving money and we're making sure they're all getting the exact same feedback and information. So that means that a lot more people are able to train because you have a lot more people that are able to give that feedback hands-on, right? So what are the results? Again, we cut training hours by 25%. We were able to scale from 3 locations to 14 locations in 2 years, okay? Now that's not only because of the training system. Obviously, we had a very good executive team leading that charge and expanding and all of that. But I'm telling you right now, I would not have been able to train for 14 locations. That would be impossible, right? So that means that every single location now has at least 1 or 2 people that are able to train new instructors. Now, what that meant for me is I made myself redundant. As the training director, I was not needed anymore. I was able to be promoted into my new role, now the regional manager of the business. So what are the practical next steps? We talked about a lot of theory. I showed you a cost breakdown on how it actually is benefiting to your bottom line. So how do you actually get started? Pick one of the systems that we talked about previously. List 5 to 10 things a new hire needs to know and do to succeed in the role. Not a nice to know, not the things they may come up, the things they have to know what to do in the role or how to do it or what do they need to know. Then record a video or a quick guide explaining those items. Do a Loom, right? If it's a technical skill, if it's on a computer, film yourself on an iPhone or a camera. The key here, record once and train forever. Film yourself doing it once, explaining how to do it once, and then you never have to explain it again because it's recorded, it lives on the internet forever. Then add a PDF cheat sheet or checklist to that video so they're able to follow along and then maybe check things off as they're learning them. Then upload that package to the LMS or Google Drive, okay? I suggest you just start with a Google Drive or a Notion database. It's the simplest way to do it. And then assign this as a day 0 of training. So have them do it at home. Pay them for it. Say, we're gonna pay you 3 hours to go through this online learning. They come in, they already have the context of what they're gonna be doing, what they're gonna be practicing hands-on. You avoided you having to do all that groundwork. They already did it at home. They come in and they can just get hands-on training right away. That's all we have for today. I hope you took something away from it. I hope that you are able to start implementing some of this in your business. If you would like some help in implementing this, or you're ready to take the next step to do an LMS, or maybe look at where you are on your staffing systems, I would love to help out. My goal is, like I said earlier in the video, to help small owners create staffing systems that work for them and that are efficient and cost effective. So if you would like to do that, click the link below for a consultation call with me. Also below, you can click and get my free guide on how to reverse engineer your star employees through my Star Employee DNA Blueprint. It's completely free. All I ask for is your email, okay? I hope you have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.